What if I told you that nothing in Martyn's story is true, and that Martyn himself tells you as much with the last line of the book? Hello, welcome, step from the road to the sea to the sky, and hopefully enjoying my review of Martyn Pig, Kevin Brooks' 2002 novel that may well be forced upon you in secondary school, if you're of that age anyway, and if not, perhaps it's just something you might want to read anyway. The story follows the eponymous Martyn Pig, a schoolboy who lives a pretty rough life. He lives with an alcoholic father in a dingy house in a dingy part of town. The only happiness in his life comes in the form of detective shows and books, or the occasional visit from Alex, his attractive neighbour. All this changes when, in a drunken rage, his father is killed. Reluctant to involve the police, Martyn instead recruits Alex, initially to hide the death and later the body. Complicating matters further is a £30,000 inheritance, Dean, Alex's loser boyfriend, and Martyn's Auntie Jean, who thinks that Martyn would be better off living with her, and she may well be right, but Martyn finds the idea really quite horrible. The story promises a twist in the tale, so I will leave the plot description there. However, you should probably not consider the rest of this review completely spoiler-free. The novel is narrated in the first person by Martyn, and at times it uses a stream of consciousness to relate events. Naturally, a book based on a narrator of that style lives and dies by how convincing that voice is, how real it feels, even when relating outlandish events or reconciling choices that the reader themselves would probably not even entertain. The initial setup for Martyn then is very effective. The bullying he suffers on account of his name, his abusive father, his isolation from his peers, they all enhance the sense of a youthful vulnerability, as does his infatuation with the slightly older Alex. Martyn is also a sensitive young man, and he suffers something like a nervous breakdown caused by sensory overload from the experience of Christmas shopping. A great swelling mass of sound searing its way into my head. I tried to ignore it, but it just seemed to get louder, and it was too hot in there too. It was boiling, there was no air, I couldn't breathe, the sound was paralysing. Chattering machine guns, talking animals, wailing police car sirens, dee-da, dee-da, dee-da. Parents shouting at their kids, whacking them on the arm, the kids screaming and crying, a constant beep, beep, beep of the tills, the music. It was like something out of a nightmare. I had to get out. Martyn's simple needs, that are generally going barely met, if met at all, evoke sympathy in abundance. Despite his quirks and extreme melancholy, Martyn's actually probably quite relatable to other young people, especially those that consider themselves to be on the outsides of, I guess, more conventional social circles. And his stream of consciousness and his nervous tics, such as the word games he plays in his mind at times of nervousness, they work well, and they make him to be actually quite a convincing character. The only qualm, and it's a minor one, would perhaps be that some of his musings on morality and justice seem sufficiently mature to be Brooks's rather than Martyn's, but even that can be explained away by his passion for police and detective fiction. Martyn's father, William, is one of those characters you just love to hate, wallowing in his own self-pity and taking out his failures on weaker and more defenceless people. His fate feels so deserved that it doesn't take anything away from Martyn's likability when it happens. Auntie Jean is effectively set up as well, with Martyn's dislike and distrust evident before she, unwittingly, becomes something of an antagonist. She remains, even after her most remarkable appearance, the hidden threat that Martyn has to contrive to avoid. Even though she is something of a pantomime villain, she doesn't really puncture the movie's realism. This realism, underpinned by Martyn's descriptions of his grim reality and the abuse he suffers, his bouts of psychosis, are only really threatened by Alex's superpowers of impersonation or Dean's bugging of Alex. Admittedly, the latter is set up by a passing comment about his interest in gadgets, but bugging people seems like it would be harder to get away with than this novel portrays. Those two things are the first hints as well that not everything is exactly what it seems. Martyn's own love for the work of Doyle and Chandler, alongside a fascination with TV cops, one of the catalysts for all of the novel's events, actually starts to border on obsession. I picked up this huge book one day and just started to read, and it was brilliant. I couldn't put it down. I loved every single story. 1,000 pages, nowhere near enough. I was hooked. Mystery after mystery after mystery. I read the whole lot in 2 days. Then I read them again, and that's how I came to love mystery stories. Murder mysteries, crime novels, whodunits, thrillers, detective stories. Call them what you like. I love them. It's the staccato nature of those short, punchy little sentences that make that seem more than just a simple liking of something. But this connection to the meta world of murder mysteries calls everything you read into question. What's real, what's not? A sense that's explored further through Martyn's occasional overt hallucinations, such as his visions of his dead father when he visits the beach, and once in a while the idea that something we're told is exaggerated, or at least so much larger than life as to be highly questionable, such as his visit to the psychotic Santa in the first act. Some of Martyn's musings on reality are firmly into the realm of solipsism, the idea that only the self can be known to exist, that all else could be illusion or fiction. I wondered what Alex was thinking about. Me? Perhaps she was wondering what I was thinking about. Who knows what anyone is thinking about? You can't even be sure that anyone else is thinking at all. How do you know? You don't. You'll never know. All you can do is assume that what's in your head is the same sort of stuff that's in everybody else's. You don't even know for sure that anything is real. How do you know? It could all be a dream. I've even thought that sometimes maybe I'm the only thing that exists. Maybe everything else is just there for me. Everything and everybody all made up just for me. And when I'm not there, it all just fades away. You can extrapolate this concept further, of course, because we know that Martyn does not actually exist. This novel is only the creation of author and reader. It makes everything questionable in the end. And Martyn's description of what makes Chandler the best crime writer could just as easily be a synopsis of this novel. And the final message from Alex, "You'd better hurry up and write that murder mystery you told me about," is also the final question of what exactly Martyn has said that was real and what was not. In part, this might be why Martyn has so much to say on the theme of justice. He's certainly the victim of what most people would consider injustice in the form of his unpleasant home life. Yet, where is justice? There are many people in the world living in comparable circumstances, and in worse. Justice is an abstract concept based around a law that is merely opinion. Are we bad? Good, bad? Right, wrong? What's the difference? Who decides? But what we're doing, it's against the law. I shrugged. What's the law? It's only someone's opinion. Morality dictates justice, and morality is a personal choice. Universal rights and wrongs exist only when there is sufficient consequentialism to back them up. As Martyn explains, there is no right or wrong. Whatever anybody does, it's not wrong to them, otherwise they wouldn't do it, would they? It's only wrong if you think it's wrong. If you think it's right and others think it's wrong, then it's only wrong if you get caught. Martyn's actions are governed by a strange tautology in that he has to deal with the consequences of his actions, but his actions are also what save him from facing the consequences of his actions. And that's a remarkable set of morals when you consider that this novel is taught to 13-year-olds in school. Martyn Pig, the novel, deals with a number of concepts and themes, but it never really loses sight of what it is, a mystery, and a story is mostly engrossing. Perhaps a bizarre trip to the beach aside, the various escapades involved in getting rid of the body produce some genuine tension, but also some comedy, particularly in Martyn's quick thinking and excuses when Auntie Jean pops in, and as well as their ham-fisted attempts to dispose of Mr. Pig. Yet the presence of Dean, and sometimes even his absence, ensures that there's always an air of danger or suspense to proceedings. The big twist the cover promises is a little oversold, I think. I'm not trying to spoil anything, but I probably have somewhere along the line. And I read this with a class of 20 Year 8 students, and they pretty much all predicted it when we were about halfway through. And that is a slight shame, but the quirky charisma of Martyn and Alex, the natural seeming narration, and the good mixture of tension and humour, they make this an easy book to recommend anyway. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. What if I told you that nothing in Martyn's story is true, and that Martyn himself tells you as much with the last line of the book? It was starting to snow. So one of the earliest points in the book where snow is mentioned is when Martyn's dad is making fake snow using shaving cream on the window. This fakery smears the window, and it introduces the idea that snow is an obfuscating force in the story. It conceals the truth, but there's also a strange sort of comfort in that. A dead silence descended, a snowy silence. You can tell when it's been snowing. It soaks up all the sounds, it deadens everything. This was a snowy silence. I lay there and listened to it, a soft white sound. To somebody like Martyn, who is quickly overwhelmed by sensory stimulation, that deadening of his senses eases his troubles. In Martyn's hallucination on the beach, the two people that both create snow, and in both instances is fake, are the two people that keep secrets from him, while also providing a degree of comfort. His father, the snowmaker, is keeping the inheritance from him, but he also eases his troubles by protecting him from Auntie Jean. And however, as we mentioned, the comfort that provides is also dangerous because William Pig is violent. And the other truth that it hides is likely that Martyn would be better off with Auntie Jean than with William. Additionally, Martyn almost dies on the beach, and Eskimo Alex, as is revealed later, is also dangerous and secretive. Martyn even describes the snow as silent, serene and menacing, reinforcing the seemingly antithetical concept of comfort and danger. The snow hides the truth throughout, but the truth and the danger always remains there. It's just hidden, and we see this in the passing moments of clarity when the snow clears. And again, Martyn tells us as much. All the muck and the dirt was hidden beneath a pure white blanket of snow. Martyn also connects us as a reader to the snow when he discusses its supposed uniqueness, also calling that into question, and when he says, although I was just one of a million tiny jewels of ice, there was only me. He also mentions snow when he suggests that there are doubts about his own story. I remember it now, most of it, I think. I remember the snow, I remember the cold, but I don't remember the cold, because you can't remember stuff like that, can you? Cold, pain, fear, you can't remember feelings. You can only remember the idea of something. You can remember that you were cold, you were in pain, you were afraid, but you can't actually remember the feeling of it. It did happen though. I'm sure it did. Believe it, or don't. It's up to you. I don't really care. I know what happened. So in the novel's last line, when he tells us that it's begun to snow, he's telling the reader that the truth has been hidden. Nothing about the story is true, but while he might take comfort in that, the truth is actually likely to be worse. Martyn may well have murdered his father in cold blood and created this story to hide, perhaps even to himself, that less comforting truth. So there you go, believe it or not, that's my theory, or it might just be a snowy story. So if you enjoyed this review, or even if you just enjoyed a little bit of waffle at the end, then liking the video and subscribing to this channel, or even leaving a comment, are the ways that you can show that. And the only thing it costs you is a little bit of wear and tear on your keyboard. See you in the next one. Hey-o.